some of the critics say that that's a bad thing, that the prophet's saying that it's scaring people, it's scaremongering, or you'll hear within the church by some scholars that we've always heard things like that, even from the Apostle Paul, which I didn't agree, because Paul was actually telling the Thessalonians that there will be a falling away first. So he wasn't saying the second coming was next week or around the corner. Okay, back here again with Christian, one of my major contributors to the program. And you'll probably be seeing a lot more Christian. Christian does a lot of research for me. He is an awesome possum and one of the most good-looking men I've ever seen in my life.
It's the shirts.
It's the shirts. That's right, because you love these like 1950s. What are they called? What kind of shirts are those called? They've got a name.
It's like a Guayavera shirt.
Is that what they're called? They've got that. It looks like a something you would wear to the Congo, or like not Congo, like doing the merengue, or
Caribbean or Mexican, or
Well, but it also goes back to the early 60s and the late 50s, that kind of look too. Okay, so I did an interesting poll. Do you have that up?
I think you're talking about the one about President Nelson.
Yes. So I did two polls separately. First, I tried to do them together, and you know what? I think I'm going. No, I don't want to screen share, because there might be some showing some. Well, let me think. I don't really have anything up. Should I screen share?
That's up to you. I don't know if you're.
Let me see what it looks like if I screen share, because it shows like my subscribers. I mean, not what I subscribe to, and so it's not bad, but it's like kind of worldly, some of it. Like I'm into.
I've noticed when people share their screen and they're looking at YouTube page, there's suggested videos, and sometimes it's like you can guess it's stuff that they're looking at, but then YouTube will always suggest things that have nothing to do with your search history.
Yeah. So I subscribe to, here's some things: Law and Crime, Charlie Kirk, PragerU, Quick Media, Saints Unscripted, Officer Tatum. Here's Haystack. So that's no big deal. All right. Okay. So I did a few days ago, I did two polls. One was, how do you view President Nelson's message on the second coming? How do you, members of the church or subscribers who are members of the church, some of you, that would be cool if I didn't have subscribers that are members. How do you view President Nelson's message on the second coming? And the reason I asked that is because, and we're going to read comments, so don't go away. Just because you saw the results of, just because you see the results of the polls doesn't mean you can go away, because we're going to read the comments, and then Brother Zebarth has some things he's going to share with us by leaders of the church, and some scripture. So the reason I said that, because it's been all the buzz that some of the critics say that that's a bad thing, that the prophet's saying that it's scaring people, it's scaremongering, or you'll hear within the church by some scholars that we've always heard things like that, even from the Apostle Paul, which I didn't agree, because Paul was actually telling the Thessalonians that there will be a falling away first. So he wasn't saying the second coming was next week or around the corner. So one poll says, how do you view President Nelson's messages on the second coming? And then I said, there is another poll that asks about how you feel others think about it. Answer that one too, and then feel free to expound. So the other one says, how do you feel Latter-day Saints view President Nelson's messages on the second coming? So the first one you vote on how you feel, and the second one you vote on what you think others in the church feel. It's interesting. So do you want to read the comments? You want to take it away, Christian? Go over the comments, and also share what you have written, or you can spearhead this and I'll chime in.
So I got some of the comments here for the President Nelson poll. There's
Well,
a
they're both President Nelson's polls, but you mean
this one is on how do you view President Nelson's messages on the second coming?
okay? How do you, right, as themselves, right?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's a Marcella Cook who says, we're told not to fear, which is true. I would also advise to make and keep temple covenants. Also true. The next person, R. Conjure, probably. We look forward to the return of the King of Kings. That could be an oblique Lord of the Rings reference there. Yeah. And then Don Ireland said, both. Sorry, I'm human and this world is kind of scary. There's all those fires going on. There's more than just the Maui one. She goes on to say, look around, but my hope is in the future. And that is so exciting after all the craziness is done. And President Nelson says to be optimistic. And I
Right.
think we need to remind ourselves of that. If something gets scary, remind ourselves of what he said. And I don't, it gets into some other stuff where I don't know,
Oh yeah, like the bottom one with Jason Evans, ma'am.
where I don't know if it's coming
Yeah.
from a vantage point of faith.
I think it just got into this like debate or argument or something, but whoever wants to go look at that, just go to the community tab. I'll leave the link to the communities tab on my channel. I don't know if you're going to get into this, Christian, but are you what is the difference in what President Nelson is saying today about the second coming being soon and what leaders in the past have said almost similarly to that, even all the way back to antiquity with Paul the
Yeah,
apostle?
and Paul, if you go to the topical guide in the scriptures, there's section that talks about the apostasy, the following away of the early Christian church, and a good chunk of the references are from the Apostle Paul. Other people speak about it too. You mentioned Thessalonians, which I'm going to read that verse in a second. In Acts, Paul says, for I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. So he was kind of saying, I have a work to do. I'm going to do what I can and preach the gospel. That's going to, help a few souls. But after I leave, there's going to be this bad element creeping in that kind of will lead to the apostasy. And then you mentioned Thessalonians. That's Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, that says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So, like he said, there will be a falling away first. Now, in our times, President Nelson is saying that there will not be any more falling away, at least as far as the main church goes. There'll be issues with individuals, little hiccups here and there, but the institutional church is not going to fall away as in times past.
Interesting. Yeah. So even so this kind of relates to our poll that I reviewed yesterday about the two prophets,
Oh yeah.
because I'll tell you how. The haystack brought up
Mm.
the keys being returned back to Christ for the gathering of Israel in Adam-on-Deam, and we know that's going to happen. I stated that might just be the prophet at that time handing them back, but the 12 might keep the keys because they are still his apostles. But the prophet holds all the keys. He can give them back, and then the apostles keep them still. But I think my point is,
That could relate to what happens in Third Nephi, where the resurrected Jesus Christ comes to the Nephites that did already have some sort of church structure there, but then he calls a quorum of the 12.
right, exactly. So why was I bringing this up? What was the last thing you said?
He
I
was kind of
told
hitting the reset button. I was talking about there has to come a falling away first, that Paul said, but that President Nelson's not saying that. You brought
oh,
up the haystack mentioned.
right. Okay. So my point is that the authority will never be lost, or we will never lose it again,
Correct.
right? Even if Christ, because Christ is going to intercept it. He's going to
Mm,
intercept the keys,
mm.
so to speak. He's going to take the keys, and then we might still have apostles, but that was kind of irrelevant, the apostle thing. Now, before you get into more, let's read the other poll. So that one was, how
Okay.
do you feel about President Nelson's, basically his language on the second coming? And almost nobody said with fear and skepticism, but
Yeah.
97% said with excitement and optimism, and then 3% said, I will explain in the comments, which we already read. So that's neat. No one on this channel, at least, or no, it's not just for the channel. This poll is set for the public. So it could be people from this channel and others. It can be anybody, but I'm sure mostly members of the church are doing this poll. How do you feel Latter-day Saints view President Nelson's messages on the second coming?
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, how do you feel? And the second one is, how do you feel other Latter-day Saints are feeling and viewing it? This was a little different.
Yep.
So what do you see here? And you can go into the comments and
Well, the fear part went up. And then there are the 12 comments. I'll pick out a few here. There's one from, I don't know how to say the username, Aruma Matatia. That could be a Maori name or another Polynesian name. It looks like they said, I always look forward to our beloved prophet's inspiring counsel for me and us all. So it's looking to the prophet. Chris Johnson said there's been a big shift in the last 2 years from I'm not ready, my kids aren't ready, to I hope he comes today or tomorrow. The sooner the better. So it's having the attitude of looking forward with optimism to the second coming rather than, oh no, I hope that doesn't happen. I'm scared of that. Like, hey, it's actually a good thing to look forward to. It's the terrestrialization of the earth, and it's
yeah,
become a paradise again. That's a
right.
good thing.
Well,
And if
and even
you're if you're at a level of righteousness to qualify to live there, that's great.
yeah, absolutely. Because if you go up here to this, if you look at the poll, one thing that you said you recognize is that it went up from what was the other percentage? It's back there. 0% to
0 to 12.
12%. Right.
Yeah.
So could this mean that maybe we are thinking that other Latter-day Saints aren't thinking the same way we are? That maybe some people, we're thinking, there are some that think that others in the church have fear and skepticism, or fear or skepticism,
Yeah.
maybe no fear but skepticism.
Yeah.
I mean, because they are Latter-day Saints, they don't fear the second coming of Christ coming, but maybe they're skeptics about what the prophet is saying.
Yeah.
Is that why we don't talk about it amongst each other that much about the second coming? Because we think others are feeling this way. But the other poll proves that this might be wrong, because the other poll was at 0%, saying everyone was saying they were excited.
Yeah. So it's like a matter of self-reporting or reporting for others. It skews the results.
Right. It does. It very much skews the result. Did you have any more that you wanted to talk about here? Let me see.
Somebody said, see, Lou, things are awful in the world right now. We have only great things ahead. Um, S. Resk, forgive me if I'm not saying these usernames right. It seems like only a small minority of the people I know and interact with are taking the messages seriously and are excited, hopeful. Everyone else is basically ignoring it, like the prophet is speaking of the distant future, or only means it in some vague spiritual sense. Either way, they don't see his message as a call to action.
Well, and that could be that that S-Resc, some of these handles are hard to pronounce, aren't they?
Yeah.
That S-Resc might be thinking like this, and maybe it's not accurate. He might be thinking that others are thinking this way about the fear and skepticism. You
I've
know,
had instances maybe 3, 4 years ago where I would in casual conversation bring up, oh, there's this thing that indicates the second coming could be soon. And I've seen people kind of go, oh, that's a little disconcerting. And it, it's good people and everything. Um, but there was the earlier comment where by Chris Johnson who said, yeah, I think a few years ago there were people feeling that way, but now there's been a shift towards, okay, bring it on. Let's have the second coming occur. And I think it's going that direction
yeah,
where there's the stones gathering more moss as it rolls down the hill and people
absolutely.
kind of waking up.
Yep, exactly. I do like this Klaus 7335. It was very simple. They said things are awful in the world right now. We have only great things ahead. I like this. It went from very pessimistic to extremely optimistic. And then I replied, wonderful things ahead.
Yep.
That's right. We have to think optimistic, like the brethren, like the prophet is not thinking dreadfully about the future, and thinking optimistic, having hope and
Yeah.
happiness for the second coming, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're going to escape all the calamities. It doesn't mean we're going to escape um all the the physical pains, the mental anguish. I mean, look what's happening in um Lahaina
Yeah.
and other places, just other there's other horrible things happening all
Canada, Washington State, Greece all had big
right.
fires.
And even human trafficking,
Yeah.
all that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Um so it doesn't mean we're going to escape that, does it?
correct.
Like Peggy West, most of the saints that I interact with still think it's many, many years away. They treat me like I'm crazy because I feel it's within 10 years. I don't, I'm not discrediting Peggy. I think she's
Yeah.
correct that she observes that, but I almost still think that some of us are thinking that way about others when maybe we should be, uh, if most of you are marking excited and optimistic, then they would be probably, maybe they just don't talk about it too. Sometimes people don't talk about everything they feel when it comes to stuff like that, those prophecies.
Yeah. Why don't I read this quote from President Nelson from 2003? This was when he was,
Wait, let me read
yeah,
these two so they don't feel left out. Dana
okay.
Scully said, I think most LDS see his comments as the same things that have been said for decades. Oh, we've always heard to prepare and that we are in the last days. This is nothing new. So she's not saying that. She's saying she she thinks others are saying that, right? Well, she sees comments like that occasionally. And then
Yeah.
I didn't reply. And then Kayaz Kenwar said, we know through prophecy that the world will only become more degenerate. I live in an area it is difficult for the youth as there are so many members not living up to the fullness of their covenants and thus give the illusion. I think they meant illusion.
Correct. It should have started with an I there, but
Yeah.
you know what they mean.
Yeah, right. That there is a lot of gray area between the white of those, the what? The stark white of those fully keeping covenants and the black of the world. I look forward to that middle ground area being fully erased so the youth aren't confused, and adults for that matter who have a shaky, wow, foundation. Can you read the rest? I'm kind of winded.
Yeah, the building of Zion and the return of the lost 10 tribes, along with Enoch and Melchizedek's people, and the Savior and the heavenly assistance that will follow is what I'm anxiously waiting for. In the meantime, we need to keep our temples busy and help those on the other side so that they too may be a part and help the Lord in his upcoming events. I'm sure for many of those events, their ordinances must be done for them to participate. We have a lot of work to do. Don't lose faith. Follow the keys and the majority of the brethren, and you'll never be deceived, was the counsel that Joseph Smith gave Brigham Young. We too need to do the same.
Very well stated.
And I got some more content related to what he talked about that we can maybe do in the next video.
Yeah. What is this? Dana said move. All right, I'm gonna leave that out. All right. And then the last one, simply another man's opinion, probably wrong. Now, they weren't saying that. They were saying they think that others think that way. All right. So go ahead with some of the quotes.
Okay, so here's a quote from President Nelson when he was known as Elder Nelson, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles from 2003, the October General Conference. He stated, priesthood authority has existed in many dispensations, such as those of Adam, Noah, Enoch, Abraham, Moses, the meridian of time, the Jaredites, the Nephites, and others. All previous dispensations were limited in time, as each ended in apostasy. They were also limited to small segments of planet Earth. In contrast, that's an important word for our current conversation. In contrast, our dispensation, the dispensation of the fullness of times, will not be limited in time or place. Globally, it will host a whole, complete, and perfect union, welding together dispensations, keys, powers, and glories from the days of Adam even to the present time.
Very interesting.
There's so much
Powerful. Powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That, I don't know where you find stuff, but I have a hard time. It's the way you punch in. I think it's the way, if you don't word things right, you're not going to find what you want.
Okay, so we're jumping ahead from 2003 to 2016. By this point in time,
So wait a no, let me comment. So what he's saying is that each dispensation has a winding up scene.
yeah, it comes to an end and ends in apostasy, but ours is the one that won't.
Well, it's going to end with the coming. It's going to, so they either one or two things happens. Either a savior comes like it did in 3rd Nephi, right?
Yep.
There was no apostasy there.
Until 200 years later.
Right. Or like a second coming happens, or there's an apostasy. But one or two things happens where the Lord intervenes and keeps the church going, right?
Yeah.
Or it gets taken away. But when you think about it, the gospel wasn't really completely taken away if we believe that John the Beloved was still alive.
And the 3 Nephites. Yeah, so there were always, a handful of priesthood holders that you could say were on the earth even during the apostasy.
But there was no active church.
Correct.
All right, go ahead.
So we're going to jump ahead from 2003 to 2016. And at this point in time, Russell M. Nelson had become the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And he gave a devotional to the youth or the young adults. I think it might have been the 18 to 30-year-old group, and said, when I pray about you and ask the Lord how he feels about you, I feel something far different from what the researchers say. Spiritual impressions I have received about you lead me to believe that the term millennial may actually be perfect for you. Wow. A true millennial is a man or woman who lives now to help prepare the people of this world for the second coming of Jesus Christ and his millennial reign. Make no mistake about it. You were born to be a true millennial.
Wow. I've heard this before. Millennial being not a negative thing. A millennial, because people go, oh, he's a millennial, she's a millennial.
They don't take work seriously. And
yeah.
They were raised by helicopter parents. And
right. And then the Gen Zs might just be, I'm thinking there are some Gen Zs that are similar to millennials, but it's usually the older Gen Zs. These younger Gen Zs, They're like the new World War II generation coming
Uh,
up.
I've seen that, and these are generalizations, but I've seen just what you're getting at.
Yeah, this
You
is
want me to
great
go?
stuff. Go ahead. Let me know when
So,
you're ready to wrap it up. You're good.
well, this is interesting because as I'm reading this, I realize that these three quotes go from when he's a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles to when he's the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles to when he's the president of the church. And he says in this final quote here, now, as president of his church, I plead with you who have distanced yourselves from the church and with you who have not yet really sought to know that the Savior's church has been restored. Do the spiritual work to find out for yourselves, and please do it now. Time is running out.
Yep. That's it. That's one of the most besides that's one of his most famous quotes, except well there's like three
Yep.
major quotes. That's one
Oh,
of
yeah.
them. The other is we're not going to be able to survive without the
Constant
constant
guiding
companion.
influence.
Yep, that one. And
In coming days, we'll see the greatest manifestations
yes,
of the Savior's
the
power.
world, yeah, good stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, and then we've got to Stephen Lund, or that's what that was.
Yeah, there was a video that was up on YouTube. I watched it a couple times, and the video's been removed, but it was the current Young Men General President talking about his getting his call to be the Young Men General President and how he visited with President Nelson, who who told Brother Lund that things are going to get exciting. We are in the end times. He just flat out said, "We are in the end times."
Yeah. Oh, I love him. He's an
I
amazing
watched the
guy.
video a couple of times and it got scraped from YouTube, and then other people said, "Yeah, I remember watching it." You know,
Yeah. I was going to read the term is derived. Were you done?
I'm done with the content I sent you.
Uh, the term is derived from the second epistle to the Thessalonians, in which Apostle Paul informs the Christians of Thessalonica that a great apostasy must occur before the return of Christ. I guess there was a bunch of buzzing around about the Savior coming soon.
Oh, I think even
Um,
in his time, there were people that thought, "Oh, Christ is going to come back in 5, 10 years."
right. And then that's when Paul goes on about that man of sin, the son of
Yep.
perdition, being revealed.
Mhm.
Um, chapters 2:1 through 12 in Thessalonians. But it's interesting because there were the church in the in Thessalonica.
Yep.
They were the church in Thessalonica. Um, they were the ones saying the second coming was coming, right? But I
I
don't
think
think
that's right.
it wasn't ever coming from the leaders of the church. I mean, it was, but it wasn't in the sense like he's coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, and if it was, why would Paul emphasize that there would be an apostasy first? If they were thinking that, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I think we could do a subsequent video on what constituted the great apostasy and then the getting out of it, because there's more than one aspect to it.
Well, it was a slow process. People think, on our mission, we taught the apostasy. A lot of members of the church think the apostasy happened like that.
Yeah.
It
In the
wasn't.
twinkling of an eye, it went apostate.
Well, yes, as soon as the final apostle or prophet, however it happened, it's kind of wigglish because we know
Yep.
John the Revelator took off. He never died. Uh,
He
but
lingered around for a little bit and then took off.
right. But there was also the church, the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Orthodox Church.
Yep.
Uh, there was the East and West that kind of formed during that time, like or right after. And the Eastern Orthodox Church was still practicing like baptisms for the dead. They didn't believe in the Trinity. They believed in a Godhead like we do.
Yeah, the
believed,
Trinity came along later. The Trinity concept came along later.
well, the West was believing in that before
Mm,
the East was, right?
mm,
The East let go of a lot of the ancient teachings that we got from original Christianity, which was a lot of the truth about the Godhead. That was argued over during the Nicene Creed,
yep.
with when Constantine came, came into power, right? And they argued about it. So the Trinity was not like a solidified doctrine. They had to vote on it, and that became the doctrine.
Yep.
The other half believed in individual gods. And they also believed, the Eastern Orthodox Church for many years believed that we had the ability to become like God, that Christ taught, what's it called? Let me see. The ability.
Exaltation, deification,
No, it's like deification, but they had a word for it.
apotheosis.
Let me look.
So it wasn't just Joseph Smith making it up later on as the first person with that.
Right.
Other people believed it.
Theosis.
Kind of part of apotheosis. Yeah, theosis.
Yeah, theosis means becoming like God or becoming God, or deification, like you said. Very good, deification. It means acquiring the qualities of God, human beings created in God's image, by having communion with the source and perfecter of life, are supposed to progress in this process till the end of their life, and even in the life after. These are the things the Eastern Orthodox Church didn't let go of until I think 800 AD. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah,
But
a few hundred years later.
So these things were a thing.
Yep.
These aren't the. And then a lot of Christians today will be like, "Oh no, that's the Gnostics are the ones that brought that in," and then later it was thrown out. No, not they. And plus, Gnosticism wasn't always. No, the Gnostics got rid of those teachings. What they practice today, I'm going to say, some of the orthodoxies that come from a big church, there's theories that was mixed and mingled with paganism. And that's where the Gnostics brought in what they're believing, which basically got rid of almost all the esoteric tenets of true Christianity. Satan came in and just ripped everything out and just said, because if you go to a Christian church, it's very empty it's very deplete of, what am I trying to say, of ordinances, of esoteric teachings. There is no belief in different heavens or different views of how we achieve salvation.
Well, it's about having the key of knowledge. The key of knowledge is in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that helps with our understanding of all these different things you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. All right, brother. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tangent there.
Think of the hymn, "Oh My Father." There's the line that says, "But until the key of knowledge was restored, I knew not why." The priesthood key of knowledge was lost, and people literally lost their understanding of certain doctrines. And they had a little semblance left. There was some rudimentary things left, but a lot was lost. Plain and precious truth.